Hello, friends. Tonight we'll travel to the most luxurious palaces of ancient Egypt, where living gods were met every morning. Imagine corridors of polished granite, reflecting the light of thousands of golden ornaments, where the air is thick with the aromas of frankincense and myrrh, and every step echoes in halls taller than modern cathedrals. This is where the pharaohs lived, not just kings, but earthly incarnations of gods, every minute of whose life was a sacred ceremony. So, before you get comfortable, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, where we journey into distant eras, not to experience adventure, but to find peace in the details of the past. But only if you truly enjoy what I do here. In the comments, tell me where you're listening to this story from, and what your local time is. Maybe the sun is just rising somewhere, while elsewhere the stars are already lighting up the cities. And tell me what story you'd like to hear next time, about the secrets of the Great Pyramid, the life of Egyptian women, or perhaps the mysterious rituals of the temples. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for some gentle white noise, and let's dive into today's journey together. Columns of ivory eye rise to the ceiling, painted with images of the starry sky, where each star is pure gold, shimmering in the torchlight. Barefoot priests in snow-white robes walk on the black granite floor, inlaid with lapis lazuli, their steps soft and silent. They carry golden cups with sacred water, bundles of lotus flowers from the temple lakes, and sticks of frankincense that smoke in thin streams. In these palaces, time flows differently, not by hours, but by rituals. Every action of the pharaoh has sacred significance: how he rises, how he washes his face, how he dons his crown, how he holds his scepter. Even the simplest meal is a ceremony of communication with the gods, not just eating. The silence here is special, not empty, but filled with the anticipation of a miracle, a touch of the divine. The air of the palaces is steeped in the aromas of the East, cinnamon from distant India, myrrh from the Arabian mountains, frankincense from Punt, roses from the gardens of Memphis. These scents blend with the coolness of the stone walls and the warmth of the gold, creating an inimitable atmosphere of a place where the earthly meets the heavenly. Outside the high windows, the Nile, the sacred river that gives life to all of Egypt, laps gently. Its waters reflect the first rays of the sun, and this light, refracted through the colored glass of the stained glass windows, creates rainbow reflections on the palace walls. It seems that the god Ra himself is sending his greeting to his earthly son, the pharaoh who will soon awaken in his golden bedroom. When the first rays of the sun touch the eastern towers of the palace, the most sacred ritual of the day begins: the awakening of the pharaoh. This is not just getting out of bed, it's the symbolic resurrection of the god Ra, who every morning defeats darkness and gives light to the world. In the pharaoh's bedroom, whose walls are decorated with golden images of the sun disk, an ancient rite slowly unfolds. First, silent priest timekeepers who track the position of the stars and the sun enter the room. They carry a water clock, a ceramic vessel with a small hole through which water trickles, measuring the sacred time. When the last drops fall onto a copper tray, it's a sign the time of the great awakening has come. Pharaoh Amenhotep lies on a bed of ebony, inlaid with gold and ivory. His pillow is not made of feathers, but of polished stone. Egyptians believed that soft pillows could harm the soul during its nightly journey to the stars. The king's body is covered with a thin linen sheet, as white as moonlight, and on his fingers are sacred rings with cartouches, signs of royal power. The high priest approaches the bed and quietly utters the first prayer of the day. Awaken, living Horus, son of the great Ra. May your eyes open as the lotus opens at dawn. May your heart rejoice as the land of Egypt rejoices at your awakening. These words are soft and soothing. They don't wake him abruptly, but gently return the pharaoh's soul from its nightly journey. The pharaoh slowly opens his eyes, and at that moment, dozens of oil lamps are lit in the room. The golden walls come alive with shimmering light. The images of the gods seem to begin to move in a dance of shadows. The first thing the king sees is the image of the god Khepri, the sacred scarab who rolls the sun disk across the sky. This is a reminder of his divine nature and his duties to his subjects. The next stage is the ritual washing, a golden bath filled with water from the sacred lake of the Temple of Amun is brought into the bedroom. This water is infused with lotus petals, mint leaves, and drops of honey. The pharaoh is not washed by servants, but by priests, each of whose movements has ritual significance. First the face, to purify the sight for seeing the truth. Then the hands, so they are clean for divine actions. And finally the whole body, a symbol of the soul's renewal.
After the washing, the complex ceremony of dressing begins. The pharaoh doesn't just put on clothes, he is robed in divine attributes. First, the thin linen kilt, the shendet, bleached to a milky white and decorated with golden threads. Then the Wessic breastplate, a collar of precious stones, each with magical significance. Lapis lazuli symbolizes the sky, gold the flesh of the gods, silver the bones of the deities. The most sacred moment is the donning of the crown. Pharaoh Amenhotep has several. The heb-sed, the white crown of Upper Egypt. The deshret, the red crown of Lower Egypt. And the pesgent, the double crown of the United Kingdom. Today he chooses the Khepresh crown, made of blue enamel and gold, adorned with the image of the sacred cobra, Uraeus, which is meant to protect the king from enemies. When the dressing is complete, the pharaoh looks not like a man, but like a living god. Gold shimmers on his body. Precious stones play with all the colors of the rainbow, and his eyes, lined with black coal, seem as deep as the water of the sacred lakes. In his hands, He holds the Heka scepter in the shape of a shepherd's crook, a sign that he shepherds the people of Egypt like a good pastor. The first meal of the day is not breakfast, but a sacred ceremony. Food is served to the pharaoh on golden plates. Each dish is first offered to the gods, and only then becomes suitable for the royal table. The bread is baked from the finest wheat. The beer is brewed from barley that grew in the sacred fields of the temple. The meat is only from animals sacrificed to the gods. The fruits are only the first fruits of the harvest. In the throne room, courtiers, envoys from distant lands, and priests from various temples await the pharaoh. But before he receives them, the king must perform the morning rites of worship to the gods. He enters the small temple at the palace, where golden statues of the main deity stand. Before each, he lights frankincense, recites prayers, and offers food and drinks. Only after this does the pharaoh's secular day begin. He sits on the golden throne, decorated with images of victorious battles and symbols of eternal life. A lion lies at his feet, not just a pet, but a living symbol of royal power. The silence of the throne room is special. It is full of reverence and awe before divine power. The first visitors are the priests with daily reports on the state of the temples, on sacrifices, and on the signs of the gods. The pharaoh listens carefully, sometimes asking questions in a quiet, measured voice. His words are not just human speech. They are the voice of the gods themselves, speaking through the mouth of the earthly ruler.
In the immense palace of Ramesses, a new capital that shines with gold and lapis lazuli, lives the greatest of all pharaohs, Ramesses II. He is already 70 years old, but his figure is still proud and commanding. His eyes hold the wisdom of decades of rule, and his voice, when he speaks, sounds like distant thunder over the Nile. The ancient Egyptians call him Ramesses the Great, beloved of Ra, he who built eternity from stone. This man was born to become a living legend. As a small boy, he ran through the corridors of his father Seti I's palace, playing with wooden swords and listening to stories of the great victories of his ancestors. His first toys were miniature chariots of cedar wood, tiny figures of warriors, and maps of Egyptian provinces that he studied as if they were sacred texts. The future pharaoh's education began early. At dawn, the boy was awakened by the old priest Amenhotep, who taught him to read hieroglyphs and understand sacred texts. Ramesses' fingers trembled as he drew the first signs on papyrus, cartouches with the names of gods, formulas for communicating with heavenly powers. After midday, it was time for military training, archery, chariot driving, fencing with the sword and spear. But the most important lessons he received from his father during ceremonies in the temple. Little Ramesses stood next to Seti I, watching him communicate with the gods, make decisions about war and peace, and dispense justice. "Remember, my son," the pharaoh whispered, "you are not only the king of men, but also the messenger of the gods on earth. Every word you speak must change the world for the better." At 15, the young prince participated in a military campaign against the Nubian tribes for the first time. He rode in a golden chariot next to his father, his heart beating with excitement and pride. The impression of the first battle stayed with him for life. The thunder of hooves, the glint of bronze swords, the cries of warriors, the dust rising over the battlefield. But he was most struck by how mercifully his father treated the defeated enemies after the victory. At 22, Ramesses became his father's co-ruler, and shortly after Seti I's death, the sole pharaoh of Egypt. His coronation took place in the Temple of Ptah in Memphis, where priests placed the gold crown of the United Kingdom on his head. At the moment the gold touched his temples, the young king felt divine power flowing into his body, making him not just a man, but a living god. The first years of Ramesses' reign were spent in endless wars. The most famous was the Battle of Kadesh against the Hittite king Muwatalli. Ramesses personally led his chariot into battle, breaking through enemy ranks like divine thunder. Although the battle did not end in a complete victory, it showed the world the courage of the Egyptian pharaoh. Later, this event was immortalized on the walls of all the great temples.
But Ramesses' true passion was building. He wanted to leave behind monuments that would outlast the ages. He had a dream to cover all of Egypt with temples and statues, each telling of the greatness of his reign. The most ambitious project was the temples at Abu Simbel, carved directly into the rock of the Nubian desert. The work at Abu Simbel lasted for 20 years. Thousands of stonemasons, sculptors, and artists worked under the scorching African sun, creating a wonder of the world. 4 colossal statues of Ramesses, each 20 meters high, face east, greeting each new day. Between their legs are tiny figures of the pharaoh's wife Nefertari and his children, as if under the protection of their divine father. The most wonderful thing is the inner hall of the temple, where the story of the Battle of Kadesh is told on the walls. Ramesses is depicted here as a god of war. He stands on a chariot, drawing his bow, while enemies fall around him. But the most mysterious thing is the Holy of Holies, where twice a year, on the days of the pharaoh's birth and coronation, a ray of sun penetrates, illuminating the statue of the seated Ramesses. In his personal life, Ramesses was just as magnificent. He had 8 official wives and countless concubines, but he loved Nefertari, the beautiful among the beautiful, the most. For her, he built a separate temple at Abu Simbel, carving words of love on the walls that have survived 3 millennia. She for whom the sun shines, the most beautiful of all women. Ramesses lived to be 90 years old, an incredible age for those times. During his reign,
he saw the change of 3 generations of subjects, outlived most of his children, and became a living legend during his lifetime. Young Egyptians thought he was immortal, that he would reign forever like the gods in heaven. In the evenings, the old pharaoh loved to sit on the palace terrace, which overlooked the Nile. The sun set behind the horizon and painted the water a golden color, and he thought about the years he had lived, how many battles he had won, how many temples he had built, how many human fates his rule had touched. His cartouche is carved on stones from Aswan to the Delta. His name is known from Nubia to Mesopotamia. When Ramesses finally passed to the world of Osiris, all of Egypt was plunged in mourning. The mummification of his body lasted 70 days, and then the most luxurious funeral procession in history carried him to the Valley of the Kings. He was buried in a tomb whose walls were covered with texts from the Book of the Dead and images of his earthly deeds. But the true monument to Ramesses is not the gold and precious stones in his burial chamber. It is the temples that still stand in the desert, the statues that look across millennia, the cartouches with his name on obelisks in various parts of the world. He truly built himself an eternity, not in heaven, but on earth, in the hearts of people who still admire his greatness.
In the most secret depths of the Temple of Amun at Karnak, where even the sun's rays barely penetrate the massive stone walls, the most mysterious of all rituals takes place, the transformation of a man into a god. Here, surrounded by golden statues and the smoke of frankincense, a simple prince becomes a pharaoh, an earthly embodiment of divine power, ruler of the 2 lands, and a mediator between the world of men and the world of gods. The future pharaoh Thutmose stands in the center of the sacred hall, surrounded by high priests who recite incantations as old as Egypt itself. His body has been washed with sacred water from the temple lake, his hair braided into ritual locks with golden threads, and his eyes lined with green caul, the color of rebirth and eternal life. The air is thick with the smoke of myrrh and frankincense burning in golden censers. The first part of the ceremony is the purification from human nature. The prince is led to the sacred lake, where he must immerse his body in the water 3 times, symbolically dying as an ordinary man and being born as a deity. The water is cold, but it doesn't frighten the future king. He knows it is necessary for his transformation. The priests sing ancient hymns, their voices echoing over the water like a distant echo of celestial music. After the washing, the most mysterious ritual begins, the sacred marriage with the goddess Hathor. In the depths of the temple stands a golden statue of the goddess of love and motherhood. Her face is gentle and wise. Her obsidian eyes look with understanding and compassion. The prince approaches her barefoot, his steps silent on the polished stone floor.
The high priest holds a golden papyrus with the text of the sacred contract. These words are written in an ancient language understood only by the most initiated. Hathor, mother of the gods, wife of Ra, accept this man as your earthly husband. His voice resounds in the silence. May he be your voice among men, your hand that blesses, your heart that shows mercy. The prince places his hand on the statue of the goddess, and at that moment he feels something incredible. A warm wave passes through his body, as if Hathor herself has touched his soul. This is not just imagination, it is a true transformation where human consciousness expands, encompassing a part of divine wisdom. Now he is not just Thutmose, son of Amenhotep, but Thutmose Horus, the earthly incarnation of the celestial falcon. The next stage is the reception of the regalia of power. Each item has a deep symbolic meaning and its own history, reaching back to the time of the first pharaohs. First, he is handed the Heka scepter, a staff in the shape of a shepherd's crook, a sign that the pharaoh is the shepherd of his people. The wood of this scepter is carved from a sacred sycamore, and the golden tip is decorated with the image of a cobra. Then comes the nikaha, a flail with 3 tassels, a symbol of royal authority and discipline. This flail is not for punishment, but a reminder that power requires self-discipline and responsibility. The tassels are made of the finest leather, soaked in sacred oils that give them a special aroma, a mix of sandalwood and lotus.
The most sacred moment is the donning of the crown. The high priest raises the double crown, the pshent, which symbolizes the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. The gold of the crown is so pure it seems alive, pulsing in the torchlight as if it has its own heartbeat. On the front is the uraeus, the sacred cobra, meant to protect the pharaoh from all enemies. When the crown touches the prince's head, a real miracle happens. He feels divine power flowing through his body, filling every cell with new energy. His vision becomes sharper, his mind clearer, his heart wiser. Now he sees not only with his eyes, but with his soul, understands the language of the gods, and feels the needs of his people. But the most mysterious is the heb-sed ritual, a festival of the renewal of royal power. This rite takes place every 30 years of rule, when the pharaoh must prove to the gods that he is still worthy of wearing the crown. The new king runs a ritual race around the temple, symbolizing his mastery of all the lands of Egypt. His breathing is even, his steps confident. He is young and full of strength. During the run around the temple walls, the pharaoh meets symbolic representatives of all the gods of Egypt. Each of them gives him a part of their power. Ptah, mastery in creation. Thoth, wisdom and knowledge. Sekhmet, strength in battle. Khnum, the ability to shape the destinies of people, as a potter shapes clay on a wheel. The coronation concludes with the solemn proclamation of the pharaoh's 5 names. Each name reveals a new facet of his divine nature. The Horus name, the connection with the falcon god, the Nebti name, the patronage of the protective goddesses, the golden name, the incorruptibility of his deeds, the throne name, his official title, the personal name, the one his mother called him. When the ceremony is complete, the new pharaoh emerges from the temple a completely different person. His step is confident, his gaze wise and calm, and an invisible light seems to shine around him. The subjects waiting at the temple gates fall prostrate at his appearance. They feel the divine presence emanating from their new ruler. The first words spoken by the freshly crowned pharaoh become a prophecy for his entire reign. I have come as the living Horus to bring peace to the land, justice to the oppressed, joy to the sorrowful. His voice sounds not like a human's, but as an echo of the gods themselves, speaking through the mouth of the earthly ruler. On that same night, a secret ritual takes place, known only to the highest priests. The pharaoh spends an hour alone with the statues of the main gods, receiving from them their final instructions and advice. At this moment, he truly becomes a bridge between two worlds, the earthly and the heavenly, the human and the divine.
When the sun reaches its zenith over the pharaoh's palace in Thebes, preparations begin for the most luxurious banquet the ancient world has ever seen. In the great reception hall, whose walls are painted with scenes of paradise gardens, servants set up golden tables, each a work of art, adorned with scenes of hunting and harvest. The air is filled with the aromas of root spices and exotic fruits delivered from the most distant corners of the empire. Pharaoh Amenhotep sits on a throne of elephant ivory inlaid with lapis lazuli and gold, watching the preparations for the banquet. A feast of luxury unfolds before him. Hundreds of servants in snow-white robes carry silver trays with dishes, each a culinary masterpiece created by the empire's best chefs. The tables groan under the weight of golden tableware, crystal cups, and bouquets of flowers from the temple gardens. The chief butler reads out the evening's menu: roasted ducks stuffed with pine nuts and honey, veal in wine sauce with spices from Punt, fish from the Nile baked in clay pots with herbs. The desserts are true works of art: honey cakes in the shape of lotus flowers, fruits in golden syrup, ice cream made from rose water and snow from mountain tops, delivered in special underground ice caves. The banquet guests are the elite of the empire, provincial governors in luxurious clothes decorated with embroidery and precious stones, envoys from Babylon and Assyria in exotic costumes, priests in golden diadems, and military commanders with awards for valor. Their voices create a melodic murmur that mixes with the music of harps, flutes, and sistrums. But a few miles from the palace, in simple mud brick houses on the outskirts of Thebes, the scene is completely different. The peasant Khufu sits on the doorstep of his home with his family, sharing a modest dinner of bread cakes, onions, and sour milk. This bread is baked from barley,
not wheat, because wheat is expensive and intended for the tables of the nobility. But this bread is prepared with love by Khufu's wife, Nefret, who ground the grain on a home mindstone. The simple family's meal begins with thanks to the gods for the day and the food on the table. May Ra bless our home, Khufu whispers, breaking a loaf of bread and handing pieces to his wife and 3 children. May there be plenty in our home and peace in our hearts. These words are simple but sincere, full of gratitude for the little they have. The road to Khufu's house leads past the pharaoh's immense warehouses where grain from all over Egypt is stored. These warehouses are veritable cities of clay and stone, guarded by soldiers and scribes who count every measure of barley and wheat. Khufu knows that there is enough grain there to feed all of Egypt for several years, but the common people are given only what is necessary for survival. But Pharaoh Amenhotep is not a cruel ruler. He understands his responsibility to his people. In times of poor harvest or Nile floods, he opens the royal warehouses, distributes grain for free, and organizes public works so that people have an income. His servants regularly visit the villages, checking whether the subjects are starving or have a roof over their heads.
In the palace, the banquet reaches its climax. Roasted lion is served, a symbol of royal power, poured with a sauce of 30 ingredients. Musicians play on golden harps. Dancers in transparent robes perform ritual dances that tell stories of the gods. The air is thick with the smoke of frankincense and the scent of roses floating in silver cups of wine. The palace chefs are true artists. Each specializes in certain dishes. One cooks meat, another fish, a third sweets. They use spices from all over the known world: cinnamon from Ceylon, pepper from India, saffron from Persia, vanilla from African forests. Each dish is a symphony of flavors created for the most refined connoisseurs. And in the home of the peasant Khufu, dinner ends with simple but heartfelt conversation. The children tell their father about their day, how they tended goats by the river, how they helped their mother in the garden, how they learned to write the first hieroglyphs on clay shards. Khufu listens carefully, sometimes smiling, ruffling his youngest son's hair. This is happiness that cannot be bought with gold, the happiness of a simple family united by love. The pharaoh, even amidst the luxury of the banquet, does not forget his people. He gives orders to his vizier. Tomorrow, send scribes to all the villages. Let them check whether there is enough grain in our warehouses, whether we are ready for a possible flood. The people are the foundation of the kingdom, and the king is only their servant before the gods. When the banquet concludes, the guests disperse to the luxurious bedrooms of the palace, where beds of cedar wood and pillows of the finest linen await them. They fall asleep to the music of distant harps, surrounded by the aromas of exotic oils and flowers. Their dreams are full of images of luxury and power, gold and precious stones. And in the simple home of Khufu's family falls asleep on reed mats, covered with rough linen sheets. But their dreams are no less sweet. They dream of green fields after the Nile flood, the laughter of children in the sun, the smell of fresh bread from the home oven. These are the true treasures, not gold, but love, not luxury, but the happiness of simple human joys. Both families, the royal and the peasant, are part of one great Egypt. The pharaoh understands, without the peasant Khufu, there is no bread on his golden tables. Without his subjects, there is no empire. And Khufu knows the pharaoh is not just a king, but the son of the gods, who must protect and care for all Egyptians, as a good father cares for his children. When the stars rise over the Nile, both homes fall asleep in peace. Golden palaces and mud brick huts, luxurious banquets and simple meals, all are part of the great harmony established by the gods, where everyone has their place and purpose in the eternal cycle of life in Egypt.
Now that the last sounds of the banquet have died down in the palace corridors, when the golden cups have been put back in their places and the royal crowns have been returned to the treasuries, it is time for the deepest peace. The pharaohs who once ruled this great land have finally found their last refuge in the Valley of the Kings, where eternity has become their most faithful companion. Imagine this mysterious valley hidden among the red cliffs of the Nile's western bank. Here, under the stone guardians of the desert, in the depths of underground labyrinths, the rulers of the ancient world sleep their golden sleep. Their tombs are not just burial chambers, but true underground palaces, where every wall tells a story of divine rule, where every corridor leads to new wonders. In the tomb of Ramesses the Great, a special silence reigns, not a dead one, but a living one, filled with memories of the greatness of days gone by. His mummy lies in a golden sarcophagus adorned with thousands of precious stones that shimmer in the light of eternal lamps. The pharaoh's face, even after death, retains an expression of wisdom and majesty, and his hands, folded on his chest, hold the scepters of power over the two worlds. Around the sarcophagus are placed treasures that are meant to accompany the king on his journey to the afterlife. Golden chariots for riding on celestial roads, silver boats for sailing the waters of the underworld's Nile, and chests of jewels for offerings to the gods of the otherworld. every object has its purpose in the soul's great journey to the stars. On the walls of the tomb, scenes from the Book of the Dead, a sacred guide for travelers in the afterlife, come to life. Here, Ramesses is depicted with the gods. He passes through the 12 hours of the nightly journey, overcoming all obstacles on the way to eternal light. The colors of the frescoes are still bright, the gold of the goddess's hair, the blue of the heavenly river, the green of the paradise fields. Next to the pharaoh's tomb is a smaller burial chamber for his beloved wife Nefertari. A special tenderness reigns here. The walls are painted with scenes of a love that conquered death. The queen is depicted young and beautiful in a snow-white dress that billows from the invisible wind of eternity. Hieroglyphs tell of her wisdom, beauty, and devotion to her husband God. But not only royal persons found peace in these sacred lands. In more modest tombs, scribes, military commanders, and architects sleep. All those who served the greatness of Egypt. Their mummies are wrapped not in gold, but in simple linen cloth. But they slumbered just as peacefully in their stone beds, awaiting the day of the great resurrection. Time in the Valley of the Kings flows in a special way. There is no haste of earthly life, no worries about daily bread, no fear of tomorrow. There is only a deep, healing peace that pours in with a golden light in the underground halls. The mummies sleep their 1,000-year sleep, and their souls travel to distant galaxies accompanied by the god Ra. Sometimes, when the full moon rises over the valley, it seems that a quiet melody echoes from the depths of the tombs. It is the echo of the sacred hymns that once resounded beneath the temple vaults. These are not ghosts of the past, but the living memory of the stone that holds all the prayers, all the hopes, all the dreams of those who rest here.
The golden masks of the pharaohs look into eternity with the serenity of gods. They saw glory and defeat, love and betrayal, wars and peace. Now all of this has become part of the great harmony of being, where every human destiny is a note in the celestial symphony. Their eyes of precious stones are silent, but in that silence is the wisdom of the ages. Next to the luxurious sarcophagi lie simpler burials, the servants who decided to accompany their masters on their journey to the afterlife. They fell into their final sleep not out of compulsion, but out of love and devotion. Now they float on the celestial waters with their rulers, serving them in the other world as well. The most mysterious place in the valley is the small chamber where the canopic jars with the pharaoh's internal organs are stored. A special sanctity reigns here. The liver is under the protection of Imseti. The lungs are guarded by Hapi. The stomach is protected by Duamutif. The intestines by heb-sed. The 4 sons of Horus stand guard over their charges, ready to protect them from any dangers of the underworld. The aroma of myrrh and frankincense still lingers in the air of the underground rooms, mixing with the coolness of the stone and the mysterious dryness of the desert. This scent is the very breath of eternity, reminding us of the immutability of the divine order,
of the continuity of life in all its forms. May this silence gradually envelop you as well. Feel how the tension of the day dissolves in the tranquility of the ancient tombs. May your breathing become as even as the eternal sleep of the mummies. May your thoughts, like the souls of the pharaohs, find peace in the fields of Yaru, where the grass is always green and the lotus never withers. Imagine yourself as part of this great silence that is older than the pyramids, deeper than the Nile, wiser than all the priests. You lie on the soft bed of eternity, covered by a blanket of starry sky, under the protection of the gods who guard the sleep of the righteous.